bringing my water just in case. Do what? It's real? Oh, no, hey, I got big words. I used a really big font so that I wouldn't have to use my readers up here and like go back and forth, right? You know, yes, I'm at the lectern. It's good. The lectern, right? Okay, so I'm April Strickland, and I'm adopted. It's one of the first words I remember hearing. My parents made sure I always knew and answered questions if I had any, and I was so proud that I was adopted. I wanted to tell everyone, even though my mom said I didn't need to. Legitimately, I told everybody. And just to like stray from this for a quick second, I came home one day because apparently I told everybody in my class that I was adopted, and they made fun of me because, you know, kids, they're, you know, evil little children sometimes. And so my mom said to me, you know, their moms had to take what they got. We got to pick you. So, of course, I went to school the next day. Armed and ready, right? Yeah. So that was another note home from the teacher. But anyway, as I got older, it seemed like no big deal. It was just normal for me. I was an only child who never thought about what came before the adoption. People would ask me, what ethnicity are you? And I had no idea. My mom said that the social worker told her that I was from Southern Europe. It's kind of a big area to consider, but okay. I mean, it could be anywhere. So when I turned 18, I thought maybe I might look into where I came from. I tried to do some research based on the info that I had, but unfortunately, everything led to a dead end. And in the 70s, all of the adoptions were closed adoptions if you did them through the state. So there really was no way to find out, you know, any information. I put it out of my mind and decided that I really didn't need to know. So fast forward 20 years, and I started to wonder about my medical history. I was fine, but what lied ahead always seemed troubling because I had no information to go on. So I decided to do a DNA test. I thought for sure that would give me the answers I was looking for, as if knowing would somehow change my whole life. And when it came, I was basically a mutt. Yeah. From pretty much every section of the entire, you know, Southern Europe. Didn't really tell me anything. So I was kind of heartbroken. So many percentages with no definitive area to really grab on. And that's when I made the decision to reach out to Children's Services and inquire about my adoption. And I knew that by reaching out, they would have to notify my birth mother. There was no way I could get the information without them notifying her. And I knew that was inevitable. But somehow in the back of my mind, I really just kind of put it back there so I didn't have to think about it. I wasn't ready to deal with that yet. So the day came when I sent in the paperwork. It only took me like another 2 years after I decided I wanted to do this to actually get the paperwork and send it in. I held on to it. It was in my closet. I looked at it every so often. I'm like, I'll get to that next week. So finally, it came, and I sent it off. And I waited a few weeks, and I finally got a response. And the letter said, send your check. It'll take about 6 weeks, and we'll have information for you if there's any available. They also said in the letter, by the way, if there's anything to do with rape or incest, we're going to send you an automatic decline. So I knew automatically if I got a no letter, nothing good came from the situation. So I waited and waited, and a few weeks went by, and I got a phone call. And it was my social worker from Children's Services. And I was super excited because I was ready to mail off my paperwork, and I told her, I said, it's in my purse, I'm mailing it out tomorrow, I'm ready. And her response was, that's not why I'm calling. And so I immediately had a sense of uneasiness, and I thought, I'm not going to get the information I want. And she said, so this has never happened to us before, but 30 days prior to receiving your request, your birth mother requested to unseal your records. Yeah. Right. And at that point, I just started to cry because I couldn't believe that a month prior, the woman who'd given birth to me also wanted to unseal my records. I mean, what were the odds? It didn't even seem real. But it was real, and I gave my consent for her to dig deeper into the process. So I called my mom, I was crying, and I said, I'm sorry, but I've done something I can't take back. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I've opened the door and now I can't close it. We had a long talk, and she was nervous and she cried because this is a woman that had loved me my whole life. And the thought of me finding the woman that gave birth to me was terrifying to her. But she was supportive, and she said it's going to be okay. And I know that was one of the strongest moments of her life, to be there for me knowing whatever happened was completely out of control. But she still stood by me and respected my choice. It was the longest month of my life. Literally, it was 30 days. It felt like it was forever. But my social worker finally called me and said, we're ready to release her name. And I had agreed to release my email to her. And she said, they sent a FedEx envelope, and they want your information overnighted to them tomorrow. I immediately said, they? She said, yes, your siblings. They're very persistent. I actually put this in quotes because that's legitimately her exact words. Now remember, I'm an only child. Had been for 43 years. And I said, siblings? How many are there? She said, I don't know, but they call here almost every day. So now I have my birth mother's name racing around in my head, and I have siblings. It's a Friday afternoon, and they want my file overnighted, which means they really want it. They really did. She gave me the name, and she said she lives in the Memphis area. I should also note that I'm from Memphis, and I've lived here all my life, just about. I wrote it down, and just like any normal, rational individual, I immediately started to stalk her on the internet. Well, of course. I mean, there had to be 2 women with the exact same name. Couldn't just be one. I mean, what was I supposed to do? Show up at both of their houses? No. So I called the social worker, and I told her I found these 2 names, and I gave her the first address, and I asked, can you tell me if this is her? And she said, I can't release that information, but I can tell you that you've done your research. And I said, okay, great, thank you, and I hung up the phone. So I proceeded to tell my coworkers I was leaving for the day, and I jumped in my car, and I called my mom, and I said, she lives in Millington. They gave me her name, and I'm headed over there. I mean, she wanted my information the next day. I'm 35 minutes away, so why wouldn't I just drive over there? I mean, it's completely rational, right? I've never met this woman, but I'm going to drive to her house. My mom said, you're really just going to go over there with no warning? Well, of course you are. I mean, why would I expect you to do anything else? Maybe there are some trees or bushes you can hide behind and see if she's outside. She wished me luck. She told me she loved me, and on my way I went. And I can remember when my GPS told me I was a mile away. It seemed like the longest drive. But it was only a mile. It was like I was never going to get there. But I was going to be there any second, and I couldn't breathe. And I get to the street, and I turn onto the street that is hers, and there's not a single tree or shrub anywhere on the street. Not one. There's nowhere to hide. I was in a big black SUV, and not a single place to hide. And I pull up to her house, and there's a whole bunch of kids outside playing basketball, and they stop, and they look at this weird stranger lurking outside this woman's home. And it turns out that everyone knew her in the neighborhood. So now there's a weird person hanging outside her door. So I took a deep breath, and I got out of the car. And I went up to the door, and I rang the bell, and I could hear voices inside, so I knew there were people inside. And I knew it was really happening, and this was the moment. And a woman opened the door, and she said, "Can I help you?" And my biggest complaint as a child was that I would never know anyone that looked like me. I never wanted to have children. So in my mind, I never knew what I was going to pass on. I never knew, if I had any family heritage issues. I just decided having kids wasn't for me. So that meant I would never see anyone that had the same look, the same eyebrows, the same shape of my nose. And when I wanted to look when I got older, I wanted to imagine what that person would stand before me looking like. When I saw her, it was like looking in her image. It was myself 20 years from now. If I'd seen her on the street, I probably would have known instantly who she was. And I said to her, "I hear you're looking for me." And she stepped out onto the porch and she said, "What do you mean I'm looking for you?" And I lifted up my sunglasses and I said, "You requested my records to be sent to you overnight. You're looking for me." And she said, "Oh my God, you're my daughter." And we just stood there for a second because, what do you say in that moment? I just knocked on your door and, "Hey, by the way," you did want it tomorrow, so I just expedited the process. FedEx deliveries really got nothing on me, I gotta tell you. And so she opened the door and she started screaming. She was so happy. Everyone she knew she'd been looking for me. Her church, my sisters, my nieces and nephews. And oh yes, by the way, now I've gone from being an only child to having 3 sisters, 4 nephews, and 3 nieces in an hour. And now I'm sitting inside her house, on her couch, talking and FaceTiming with my new sisters, talking to all of my nieces and nephews, and really just not even believing what had happened. I was there for 5 hours. No one knew where I was, by the way, except my mom. That was a really fun conversation I had with my previous husband. I just drove off and met my birth mom, but hey, it's fine. We'll talk about it when I get home. No big deal. My sisters all came home from work, and they were so unbelievably happy. And I've got to say, I didn't know how it was going to feel. I didn't know what to expect, and when I think back on that day now, I still don't think I have the right words. It was a day I'll never forget. I was lucky to have known Sandra. She gave me answers I never thought I would have. I didn't spend a lot of time with her because for me, I knew she had to make that choice, and I knew she made the right one, and I respected her for it. But at the same time, we both had lives. We both came from different families, and I wasn't really sure how to navigate a new family and incorporate everyone into my life and protect all of their feelings. The last thing I wanted to do was hurt my mom and dad because they're amazing parents. And I didn't want to hurt Sandra. She'd had a hard enough life wondering what happened to me. And then I had my sisters to think about. What kind of relationship would we have? I had no idea how to have siblings. I had no idea how to be an aunt. I'm still working on it, finding a balance that we're all happy with. So 2 of my sisters are here tonight. So I think we're doing okay.